You're listening to Girls, Ghosts, and Ghouls, a showcase of specters, spirits, and spooks, as well as the women who love them. Only on ZTO TV podcasts.
Timely, topical, and terrifying.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Girls, Ghosts, Ghouls. And, as you know, I'm Jenny. Sorry, I don't even know my name. It's been that kind of day. I'm joined by Rebecca and Betsy. Apparently, I was trying to merge my name with Betsy's, so I'm Jetsy now.
I take it.
It's Monday. I think we all can cut ourselves a lot of grace.
So here's the funny story about this episode. We had a friend of mine, an acquaintance of mine who I know through dance, post when I had posted one of our other episodes about a movie called The Great Gabbo from the 1920s, I believe it was.
Roughly, yeah. It was barely in the age of talkies.
It was 1929. It was the first ever Hollywood musical.
There you go. That she had presented as an option for this. And we were like, she's also a librarian, so she works in the library, and she was talking about how it had been restored and all, and some of the imagery in it. And so we were excited, and we're like, yeah, we want, first of all, to be interactive with our listeners. So we're like, let's do that. So we all watched The Great Gabbo, and although a fascinating film, not a horror film on any level that I could really say, other than some things are horrifying. We have a man baby, an original incel,
pretty much,
and we do have a ventriloquist dummy, but it doesn't take on a life of its own. But I do kind of wonder if it might be a precursor to those movies where you see that ventriloquist dummy comes to life and takes over.
Because you're like, is it just him being the guy who does not have the mental set of tools
intelligence
to address
be able
his emotions? And he can only funnel it through that, or are they going to bring about like a haunted doll?
Yeah, which they never did bring about the haunted doll. And interestingly, though, in The Great Gabbo, the doll was the nice personality. The guy was the dick.
Yeah,
which in the horror films, it's generally the person behind the ventriloquist themselves is usually either very nice, a pushover, doesn't know how to talk to women, but is also very polite. And the ventriloquist dummy tends to be like, I don't know, a rapist and a horrible creature.
I've seen that trope carry over through so many. Through so many horror films and TV anthology shows, but unfortunately it didn't seem to get into that aspect.
No, so The Great Gabbo is not a horror film. However, if you're into classic movies, it's to see an original musical, and it's actually very well acted, great scenes, great costuming. So it's worth it to watch outside of, just don't watch it expecting it to be a horror film.
Right.
But it led us to go, musical, stage, Broadway-esque, creepy,
Thanos,
toxic relationships. How about the Phantom?
Yeah.
So then we couldn't quite make up our mind if we wanted to do the 25 or the 43. So we just did both. But mostly we're focusing on the 25.
Yeah. I was gonna say the 25 because it's famous Lon Chaney.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Lon Chaney, the original man of Mask of a Thousand Faces.
The man of many faces, yes.
Yeah, he did all that entire work. There was no CGI. The concept of makeup artists still didn't really exist at this time. His
Lon
work
Chaney
was
the makeup
artist. In it. He was, yes. Yeah. Stars had to do their own makeup at that time. They didn't have a makeup person for.
But he also is credited as being a makeup artist, so I think he continued with it outside of just.
Yeah, he is.
Just being an actor.
He has credits for the makeup artist, director, actor. So he did.
He was a jack of all trades on this movie.
Yeah,
everything. Yeah,
he really was. I feel like a lot of the early film theater people really had to be, because they were working with such a new genre. I mean, it was wide open with what you could do.
There was stage makeup, obviously, for stages, but it was different. I mean,
they had
a lot of trouble. You didn't know how black and white film was going to play on it.
Exactly.
You were live. I mean, you still have to overdo your makeup for the stages. Anybody's performed knows.
Yeah.
Little makeup might as well be no makeup.
They had a lot of initial troubles managing some of that, because anybody who's worked in either theater and then segued over to some kind of screen work, be it small screen or movie, can tell you that like what you have to do for the theater isn't necessarily what you have to do for behind the camera.
Yeah.
So
other than you consistently have to do more makeup than you would think if you've not done it.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's always more makeup than you would think.
True. I look
But
at like
the
some
colors
of
and how you do it and all that, yeah, I mean, totally different worlds in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But if it's possible that you have never seen the Phantom of the Opera, any version of it, it seems hard to believe, but you may not have. The general plot is there's a young ingenue opera singer who catches the eye of a disfigured creature that lives beneath the opera house in Paris, and he decides he is going to help blossom her talent with the goal of making her end up living with him forever and be his slave under the Paris Opera House. So it doesn't make a lot of sense when you think about that, but that's men for you. So.
Yeah, it originally came out from the 1910 novel by Gaston Leroux,
Yep.
which the producer came across almost completely by accident. He was on vacation in Europe, and he was in Paris, and he visited the Paris Opera House, like you do. And he ran into, gosh, who was it here? He was. He worked. The producer met Leroux, who was working in the French film industry, and the producer was talking about how much he loved the Paris Opera House, and Gaston kind of did this classic author line of, "Hey, have you read my book?" So he passed the book along to him, and the producer read it in a night and was like, hey, wait a minute. And there's also like later on, like maybe when we discuss the set, I have a few comments about that as well.
Oh yeah, that set got reused for years.
Yeah.
It was massive.
It was actually, the designs came from someone who had worked in the French Opera House. So it's apparently very authentic, and the guy never knew, like until the 70s, he had never seen the movie, and he's like, he watched it then and was like, they used my stuff.
So truly cool movie. It's a silent film, and it's just the acting's a whole nother level when you do silent films. I know you probably heard us talk about it when we did Nosferatu and Shadow of a Vampire, but it really is. And when you think about Lon Chaney, I believe, and please keep me honest, that his parents were deaf mutes, and so he was really good at expressing without voice. So and you can see how good he is at it as well. And back to his makeup, it was, I mean, really, it holds up. It was some special effects kind of shit that you could probably pull out today. Like, I wonder if he patented it or something. I'm sure he didn't, because he didn't think that way back in the day. But
no,
phenomenal. I mean, it's just really good. And you got to think this is before, like, they were really had the innovations that they have for horror movies now. And that's
because some of the material that he even used was like the wires on the nose to pull the nose up. The cheek padding was flammable. Yeah, the material that he used. So God help him if he had gotten accidentally set on fire, which is not out of the realm of possibility
in filmmaking those days, especially.
Yeah.
So I mean, just amazing work. And they had kept it under wraps. Like no one saw his makeup until the scene was filmed. Well, except for one person. He tested it out on one dude.
Director of photography. I have that mad, and he was working on it in his trailer, and Charles, the director of photography, came in and was like, "Hey, yo, Lon!" And Lon turned around and went, "Braga!" And
scared the hell
out of Phantom. And Charles like tripped and fell back. I was like, "What the hell?"
And Mom was like, "Good, I've done my job. I don't need to ask you."
Yeah, he popped out the false teeth. I was like, "I see this is working."
So, must have had a hell of a sense of humor too.
So good.
But
yes.
And it freaked the hell out of poor Mary Philbin too, because like when she didn't see it until the first scene where the mask comes off and he turns around, so that look of horror on her face isn't even acting. It's truly
There's
genuine.
there is also I do have a story about that scene, so we can get into that either
Go ahead.
either now or when we
Go ahead. We're here now. Do it.
Oh, sure. Well, he was they with the director. First of all, with the production, it's a miracle that the movie turned out as well as it did, because the cast and the crew hated the director. They were just like constantly butting
like
heads.
Lon Chaney and him didn't directly speak to each other. I think.
Yeah, they didn't speak to
midway
each other.
to the end, I believe. They had to use an
through
intermediate.
through most of it. Yeah, because they used Charles, the guy I referenced previously, and Charles would be like, "Yeah, the director says this," and Lon Chaney was like, "You can tell the director to go to hell." So Chaney pretty much did what he want, and so they took, for that scene where Mary Philbin sees the Phantom, they did a crap ton of takes during the day. The director kept trying to get it, and it wasn't hitting. And so finally they're like, okay, all right, we're going to take a break for the day. So then later, Lon went up to Mary and to Charles. He's like, look, and the crew was like, hey, look, I have some ideas. Let's try this again. And she was okay. So everybody was trying to run the scene again. And in that take, Chaney is saying, like, when they do the turnaround reveal to Mary, he's saying these horrible things, and he rushes at her as if he's going to strike her, and she cowers back and bursts into tears. And he's like, that was the reaction I was going for. He stopped, he reassured her, he did the aftercare, yeah, and they got the scene. So that was. Yeah, so
I remember reading that he had actually directed that scene himself.
Mm-hmm.
Several scenes he did himself, but that was one of the main ones that
which I think makes it really good. I mean, I feel like you are really connected to the scene. So.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. So like this movie was 1925, I believe I said, and obviously silent. They did redo it with sound, like they put sound in it, and that version. I mean, I believe it's the same version, but with them talking.
Yes.
Completely disappeared.
Was that like the 1930 version? I thought there was a remake or like a remastering with the 1930.
It might have been around then, but it completely disappeared. Okay. Gone. Okay. Well, it had to be prior to 1930 because he died in 1930.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so. He was, I mean, they really knocked it out of the park with their casting on this one.
But I just find it interesting, like the one where you can maybe hear them talk and see how that would have gone. Like just doesn't exist.
And that's the sad aspect of Chaney's work, is that fully 2/3 of what he worked on is considered lost films.
Yeah.
I think he had. It is because I wonder just like how much did we lose?
Yeah. It was because celluloid was completely and utterly flammable, and we didn't know how to store it.
Yeah, and it would degrade over time as well, and not good.
So oops, we learned. But yeah, so much was lost just from the silent era alone, which is unfortunate because this is so lovely, and I can't imagine not having it. The grand ballet sequences and opera sequences that they put into this. Did you guys happen to find one that had music dubbed, like put over it?
Yes. I think I had because there were two versions out there that are kind of in the home release / streaming market. There's an Eastman cut, which is like at 97 minutes, and then there's another cut which I think is a little bit longer. I had the Eastman cut.
I was gonna say mine was the 97 minutes. The operas that they cut into the one that I was watching were really well cut in. Like they looked like they were the operas they were performing. So I have no idea, but they did a good job of that. The music was lovely. It was lively. I really enjoyed it. But I was like, the first time I ever saw this, my version that I had was silent.
Like completely
silent. There was
goodness.
So I watched this for the first time ever in my life when I was like 13 with nothing, just the visuals. So I could remember things like there was a ballet sequence that felt like it went on forever, but it didn't once you had music. But my God, they're just dancing and there's nothing happening. It feels like it goes on forever. But
and that's funny because it should have had music, because I mean it was issued out with music. They had a score. It was the same composer, Joseph Carl Briel. He was the composer of music for Birth of a Nation. So yeah, they had music. I mean, that's funny.
I don't know why the one that I had as a child didn't have it, but it didn't.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of
when you got it, if it was restored, who did it. So I honestly don't know which version I watched, because I watched it twice, once earlier in the week and one this week. I know one of it was on Tubi. I don't know if the other one wasn't. The one on Tubi is 1 hour and 51 minutes.
Woo.
That was the other cut.
That's all I can tell you. You can see my ignorance there. I will say that they had there was that lovely color sequence scene during the mask ball.
Yes.
And also they actually a little bit of a bow to the Mask of the Red Death in that scene as well.
I love that. Yeah, you can tell like LaRue must have read his Poe. I mean,
he absolutely read Poe. That's I was reading up on the book because I hadn't read it in a long time. I was serious when I was like 12 or 13. I became absolutely obsessed with Phantom of the Opera. I read it in every iteration that was out there. Like if there was another book that was like based on Phantom of the Opera, I read it. I know all the musicals. I watched every film adaptation. I was psychotic, but I didn't remember until I was watching that I was like, oh my God, I was totally obsessed with Phantom of the Opera for a while. But LaRue had found Edgar Allan Poe. He was originally going to be a lawyer, and then he gambled away his tuition to go to law school. So he became a reporter and started writing, and that's how he started to find these famous writers. And he found Edgar Allan Poe and was like, this is what I want to do. And then he, through his court reporting, heard about an accident that happened at the Paris Opera, which legitimately happened.
The fault was the falling chandelier, I assume.
The falling chandelier. Okay. Basically what happened was there was a short in the chandelier and it caught fire to the ceiling, and then the chandelier dropped.
Oh, shit.
Injured several, but he took that along with the stories that were already in existence that the opera was haunted, and created the Phantom of the Opera.
Oh wow.
So
that's fascinating. I love it.
Where that came from. And to his deathbed, he swore that the opera ghost was real and that this was a true story.
Yeah.
True-ish.
True-ish. You know, I don't, you can almost say that I don't know of an opera house that doesn't have a ghost.
I mean, that's it.
Theater.
I don't know of
theaters
that doesn't have a ghost.
A theater that doesn't have a ghost. Yeah. I mean, there's always stories going along.
Oh yeah.
Yes, there is. But but you know what I love about this one? No, I haven't read the book, I'm afraid. Sorry, I never thought about it. I just got obsessed.
Yeah, I haven't read the book either myself, but I might.
And all the horrible iterations of the movies that came on through the 80s and 90s, by the way, I watched them too. So.
Robert Englund. Oh.
So I've seen Robert Englund play the Phantom.
Oh, really?
There's a really terrible movie called Phantom of Paradise. There's the Phantom of the Mall, I think, is one of them.
I'm a huge fan of the Phantom of the Paradise. Thank you very much.
Oh,
so I watched but you know, I loved how like many of the versions, like, so some tried to give a reason about why he was disfigured and in the catacombs, but this, you know, original 1925 one, they don't give you any of that. There's just the Phantom of the Opera. He's been there.
The book doesn't explain it.
Yeah, he's just there.
And in some of the post-production work, because like originally when they showed it first, like an LA audience, the LA audience was like, "This is balls." They didn't like it, and so they did a lot of post-production work, and that's where like the ending changed a few times. And then some of that they also tried to touch like upon his background. Not like on one, I think in one episode he was a chief torturer for some, you know, Maharaja in India and this and that. But yeah, you're right. In this one, they didn't really.
No,
I don't know why he's disfigured. We assume that he had some association with the catacombs down there from the start, because you know, in that mask scene, he talks about, you know, the torture chambers and the souls that were buried beneath the opera house and how they were being disrespected by the revelry
Yeah.
happening above it.
Yeah,
But,
the closest you come to any of his background really is that little note that the secret police inspector
Ledoux.
Ledoux.
yeah, he was escaped from an insane asylum he had been imprisoned on.
Devil's Island.
Yeah.
Devil's Island.
Yes,
It was an
French
which
penal
was a prison
colony.
for the criminally insane. Yeah. So,
Or murderers, what have anybody that they were
in that note, he says it
Oh,
was
right.
prison for the
Okay,
criminally insane.
all right.
I'm not
Sorry.
so I'm not
was
guessing on
going
that one.
for
I
the-
remember that, and when you brought it
Yeah.
up, sorry.
I was going
Yeah.
for the actual Devil's Island background.
Yeah, no, I'm going for the movie one. Sorry, honey, I'm all in fiction.
Movie,
Gotcha.
yeah.
But I totally forgot that. So they give you that too, but they really don't. Yeah.
Yeah. There's no.
How
No,
long you've been
nothing.
under there? When he escaped.
God only knows.
But here's where, like, so I mentioned that it ties in with the toxic relationship / incel masculinity. So when the Phantom speaks to Christine Day, Mary Philbin's character, he basically says, you know, I'll teach you to sing, like, you know, I'll get you your stardom basically, but you're gonna be my slave and I'll be your master. And she at first is like, okay.
All right.
I just want to be famous. It's fine.
I mean, I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm thinking that I would have some hesitation on that. Maybe she just figured, whatever. He's just saying that. It's okay. Maybe he means he wants my salary when I make it.
Yeah.
Fine. So, which is when she blows off Raoul, her lover, who is also, you know, he was a Viscount in this one, right?
Yeah, he was a Viscount. He had a brother that was a count.
Count, right?
I'm not sure how that works. French aristocracy is weird.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I pay no attention to titles. I just remember Viscount, Count, because that's what they said is. If you ask me what that means, I'll just say you're probably inbred.
That's a
all I know is that he has
chance.
a wonderful mustache. And
Stash.
I was like, I think his mustache is doing the heavy lifting at this point.
I have a comment about that.
Go ahead. Go.
Tying back to Lon Chaney's expertise in makeup and how he was particularly good at playing these tortured, disfigured villains and tragic characters, because he did Quasimodo as well in Hunchback of Notre Dame. I mean, previous to this, as they didn't have a makeup department, like their villains, it kind of consisted of stick a mustache or a beard on them and shove them out the door.
He's evil now.
Yeah. So maybe Raoul is secretly a little bit of a villain with the mustache.
But you do run into, so you have Raoul, and Raoul, Christine gets to sing, I believe, and he comes out and it's like, now we can get married. You've sung on the stage. You're done. You know.
There, you had your career. Let's go have babies.
Yeah.
You had your moment of fame. So to be fair to Christine, that might be why she thought some master who was going to let her actually be famous might be a better choice. Have to throw that in there. And that's actually a theme you see repeatedly throughout like films up and through, I'd say like the 50s and 60s even, where you had a woman talent and it was a choice she would have to make. And if you really want one that'll traumatize the shit out of you, watch The Red Shoes. That'll fuck you up. It's not a horror film in the sense of classic, but if you're a woman and you watch it, it's a bit horrifying. So
there are a lot of those.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an intense movie, just, not to digress too far, but I mean, it really does follow up on the theme where, you get married or you have a career. No other choices.
Well, I know we're mostly focusing on the 1925 one, but in the 1943 one, the master of the opera house literally takes Christine aside and says, if you want to be an opera singer, you can't have relationships. You're either an opera singer or you're a person. You can't be both.
Well, actually, that one he applied, there's a third option. Because he actually says in that one that you can't have a relationship with someone outside.
Oh, yeah. Or you have to be with someone who's an opera singer.
Right.
I'm fairly certain professionals probably still get that same advice,
Probably.
Quite possibly.
Although, in my personal opinion, you can't have two divas on the same stage. Sorry.
I mean, you can, but it's usually just a recipe for disaster.
My career is the most important.
Yeah. Doesn't go well. Usually at some point you're going to do that to somebody's
experience with that.
I used to date only actors. Don't.
I was married to a professional musician. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I was just married to a narcissist. He wasn't really good at anything.
Well, that too. Mine was a narcissist.
Sorry.
Also happened.
There's our horror
Also
stories
happened.
for you.
Yeah, really. Someday. Meanwhile, back at the farm.
Back in the Paris
Well,
Opera
back
House.
in the catacombs under the Paris Opera House.
We back to that toxicity.
A different kind of toxicity.
Yeah, really.
Might explain why we recognized it right away.
Oh my god. And yeah, in both this and the Great Gabbo.
Seriously.
So, at some point, I've got them all mixed up in my head now, but at one point Christine sings before, and then Carlotta, the main diva, is back on, and the Phantom basically says, hey, no, Christine's gonna sing. And of course.
And the managers, of course, are like, oh no, we're not gonna pay attention to this ghost.
There's a lovely scene at the beginning too where they don't really believe in the Phantom. So the
Selling
owners of the
scene?
opera house are new. They bought it off of somebody else. After the papers are signed, the old owner's like, oh, by the way, there might be a ghost. He kind of takes over box 5. Whatever, if you want details, go ask the, concierge for box 5. And they're like, oh, we don't believe in ghosts. That's just silly. And they go over to box 5, and there's like the matron of the box, and they're like, is there a ghost in there? And she's like, I don't know. They ask about who it is that has that seat, and she's like, I don't know who they are. I've never seen their face. They're in a cloak and they're in the room, and I don't mess with it. And they're like, oh, whatever. And then they open the door and they go in, and they see this cloaked figure, and they're like, and they go back out, and they're like, wait.
I love their expressions. Yeah. You're at the buying scene and that scene in the box. Those two actors they're lovely.
Knock it out.
But it's funny because you can almost see the conversation. Well, even if it is a ghost, he needs to pay for a ticket. Let's go in and talk to him. Right? And they go back in, and the Phantom has disappeared already. So now they're even more freaked out. It's a lovely scene. They're like,
I agree. That was a fun little moment.
That had me chuckling. It was a nice comedic moment to it.
Yeah, like that, and the whole sales scene where they're like, and you can see like paper signed, and then when they're starting to get up, and the previous owner's like, oh, by the way,
well, and the two
now that you've signed the papers.
Yeah, while they're signing, the two previous owners are looking at each other like,
yeah, are you gonna tell him?
All right. Now that everything's signed,
I'll tell you now. Yeah.
By the way, it's haunted. Bye.
They thwart the Phantom, of course. They tell the Phantom, that, well, they don't tell the Phantom. They defy the Phantom's orders about, what's going to happen. And then the Phantom, of course, kills Carlotta, I believe, in both versions, correct?
No, I think he just
does he just scare her off, or does he kill her in this?
Well, in one of them, it's implied that she's just scared off.
I know in the 43 he kills her.
In the 43 he murders her. Yeah.
I don't know about the 25. Which also an interesting note about the 1925 one. So Carlotta is clearly single, in my opinion, because her mom is her manager. And I think they put that innovation in there because, we can't just have a single woman in 1925 owning her own career. We need to have some kind of chaperone happening here.
I love it when her mother goes in to confront the managers, and she's like, I have received this note telling my daughter not to sing, and she's smacking the managers and whatnot.
Original stage mom there. She was like, mm-mm.
Oh yeah, she is mama to the 10th degree.
Yeah, I was like, oh, stage mom Karen.
She was a hardcore. She's like, you're not fucking with my daughter because that's fucking with my money. We ain't doing that. But yeah, I honestly don't recall if they kill off Carlotta or if they managed to do if the Phantom managed to do something to just scare her away. But
I thought it was scaring her away, or like mild something to make her ill.
If I recall correctly from the book, which this pulled a lot more from the book than the 1943 version did, he made it so she couldn't sing anymore. She just croaked like a frog every time she opened her mouth. So that may be where they were going with this one, where he just got rid of her by making it so that she couldn't perform.
Okay.
But I can't remember. I literally can't remember what happened to her.
Either way, she's no more.
Yeah.
And the Phantom had dragged Christina underground at one point and basically told her, don't ever look in my face. My name's Eric. If you're nice to me and love me, then I'm Eric and I'll love you back. If you aren't nice to me, don't love me, then I'm the Phantom and I'll basically make your life hell and will kill you and everything you love.
Great guy. Not.
Why doesn't she just
living
love
in the
Phantom?
basement?
Yeah. There's also like just he sleeps in a coffin bed. There's a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
Christine's
That
like,
was very Count Orlok for me. I was like, oh no.
like poor Christine Day. She's like, I don't know what the
She's
fuck
like,
I just got into.
no. And he's like, no. That's mine.
That's where
This is yours.
to remind me that one day I will feel the release of death.
Pretty much.
Oh, you emo person, stop it.
So, but yeah, he makes it clear that her one rule besides adoring me in every way, shape, and form, that's rule number 2, is don't take off the mask from me. So, of course, she's going to take the mask off from him, and she does. He freaks out, and he's,
And that wonderful, amazing scene.
Oh my God, so good.
So, just,
so amazing. And
both of them are just, because you can feel the terror in that scene of this character's terror. I mean,
thought it was gonna be bad, but what the fuck is this? Just completely horrified.
Oh yeah. And to be fair, like, wow, that's a really good, I mean, because the makeup is scary. Back to that discussion of the makeup.
I mean, if I ran into that in the street, I would be like, well, okay,
yeah.
I'm gonna go that way. Don't follow me.
I'm gonna turn. I'm gonna run because I have no shame and pride.
I just gotta go.
Yeah, I gotta bounce.
Something, and I'm gonna go. Yeah, just. But he also, basically tells her that she can go up for the mask ball and perform, but she has to promise to come back to him and be a slave. And of course, she's like, "Of course I will. I will." And also tells her she can never see Raoul again because he will kill Raoul if that happens, and he'll kill Raoul and her. So of course, the first thing she does is sends for Raoul and says, "We got to meet." But
meet me at the ball.
But of course, Raoul being Raoul, when they do meet, he's like, the Phantom appears as the Red Death. He's like hanging over the banister, drawing attention, and she's like, "Could we not fucking do this? He will kill us. Let's go."
I said discreet.
This is not discreet. So they go all the way up to the roof of the opera house, and I bring this up because there's just this stunning scene. Like it's done basically almost in a bluish color.
Yes,
except for the Phantom, who's bright red and like sitting on the steeple, almost like a gargoyle. It's just so beautiful.
Same, because I even have something in my notes that I was like, I love the blue cast compared to the red robes.
Absolutely, it was beautiful. And him on the angel, and he's got the mask off, and he's like still looks like the Mask of the Red Death because it's all skeletal
and I loved how they put the whole ball in color, and then they had that in color, and then when those scenes are finally done, you're back to your normal black and white. It was just really striking.
I really feel in that scene atop the opera house, you watching it, you feel like you're there. You feel the silence and the far nature of the city sounds and the wind, and it's just,
and you feel her fear, you feel his pain. I mean, like, okay, he is an incel and a jackass, but he was feeling very betrayed. And, he deserved to be betrayed, but that's a whole other thing.
Completely.
Still don't enjoy seeing somebody hurt right at that phase. I mean, later on, you kind of feel more okay with it, but like, oh, that's poor guy. But also, sorry about your luck because you're a dick.
Yeah. Sorry about your luck, but you don't threaten people with death to get your partner.
She doesn't love me. Yeah, I would hope not.
Yeah, I hope not, because if she did, we'd have to have some serious sit down talks.
Would that be a Helsinki syndrome? Is that what it is when you
Stockholm syndrome?
Stockholm. Thank you.
Yeah,
I think Die Hard fucked me up because they had that one guy who kept screwing it up, calling it Helsinki syndrome. That's all stuck in my brain now. Thanks, Die Hard. Anyway, Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah,
good job.
Anyway, go ahead, Betsy.
Well, I was just gonna say that's one of the I know far too much about Phantom. In the musical, it always bothered me that she like obviously felt for him, and I'm like, he is really trying to murder everyone and pretended to be your dead dad. I don't think you need to do this.
Yeah.
Just we don't have to be friends with him. It's okay. It's okay to not like him. You don't have to love him.
Show you what you're missing, and then she kisses him, and I'm like, don't do that.
Just don't.
It's a bad choice. Just a bad choice. But as we've all mentioned, we've kissed those red flags ourselves. So
Kiss myself some Phantoms. So it's
if you've seen the newer Suicide Squad movie, there's a lovely scene where Harley Quinn has learned how to deal with red flags, and I admire that greatly.
All right, I'm gonna have to watch that movie now.
I won't ruin it for you. You just enjoy it when you see it.
All right,
but it's great.
It's one of those that I'm definitely gonna know it when I see it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
She says red flags, so you know it's
Excellent. Sounds wonderful.
Oh yeah, she spells it out very plainly. It's really good.
Okay then.
So that's my recommendation. Meanwhile,
yes, absolutely.
Back to the Opera House.
So
again.
Okay, now I rewatched it and I'm still confused. There was the whole scorpion grasshopper thing.
Okay, so
and like the grasshopper was going to blow up the whole opera house, but the scorpion just drowned her lover. So I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead to people. At some point, she gets re-abducted, of course, and down in the thing, and Raul and
Raul and his brother, I thought it was. Or was it?
No, it was that special agent that was trying to track him down.
Ledoux.
Okay, yeah.
Ledoux, who, if you read the book, would have been called the Persian. So I'm glad they took that out.
So yeah, but yeah, they were trying to track her down, Ledoux to arrest the Phantom, and Raul to save his lady fair.
Well, and then the like the rest of the cast and crew
were coming because the Phantom had killed Staff, one of the Staff's brother.
Because he knew too much. Yeah, I from this point on, I kind of called it the peasants hunting down the monster stage of the movie.
Yeah.
Well, I was laughing because they're in that room filled with gunpowder, and then all the people are coming down with all the torches, and I was like, they're gonna blow up the thing all by themselves. They're not gonna do anything. Phantom's just gonna sit there and all those people with the torches.
And it's lovely because the whole thing's done just chaotically. It's great. You got like, villagers coming to sack the monster. You got the heroes trapped. You got the heroine who doesn't know what to do. And then there's the scorpion and grasshopper. And I guess she turned the scorpion. She was going to stay with him forever and not blow up the opera house. Is that what it was?
Correct. Yeah.
Or she could turn the grasshopper and leave him, but she's blowing up the opera house.
In the book,
this is a lovely choice.
Line about the grasshopper where he says, if you turn the scorpion, you're saving everyone. And if you turn the grasshopper, the whole place will hop, 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 hop. Because he's going to
blow. Pop, pop, pop. Yeah. But meanwhile, when she turns the scorpion, it floods the chamber that Raul and Ledoux are in. So she starts panicking about that and then offers even more to be his slave times 12, I guess, if he'll save them. And the Phantom being
kiss you.
The Phantom being the wonderful dude that he is, does, in fact, open the trap door and pull out Ledoux and Raul.
Which I like that they were literally like right down
under the.
Yeah, I thought they were like right next door.
No, they were right under their feet.
Yeah, they literally. He just goes, y'all, and they come up out.
Throws the rug aside and opens it, and there they are. And then he gets mad because she like goes right to Raul and starts caressing and holding him, and like right to the chest even, and
dead.
And then you can see the Phantom going, but I want my head to be on the boobies. What's happening?
Those are my boobies. Hey. Who said so? Hey.
Like, it's like the very look that I saw in his face was like, that is mine.
Yeah, no take backs. No take backs.
And that's what does him in. Like, he didn't know that she loved him in the first place. She was offering to do anything he wanted just to save his life, but then was like, and she's hugging him?
I cannot take it anymore.
Right. So, which then basically ends, like, I forgot, did something blow up or something that he gets smushed or something? Or
basically the opera house collapses because they've let all the water out.
Mm-hmm.
The water's coming through, and as the water's coming through, the opera house collapses because of the water and falls on him. And they get out, but he does not.
Yeah,
they had the poor sad Phantom of the Opera.
one of the final endings. They had ones where like he gets a kiss from her and he's overwhelmed by her purity and loveliness and his own ugliness, and they find him slumped at the organ. And I thought there was another one where he drowned.
Probably.
Yeah, they had to reshoot. They retooled the ending like several times, each time like after audience feedback.
Yeah. The musical ends with her kissing him and then him being like, go, and then it implies he dies, but then they wrote another one, so there's a sequel.
Leave it alone, man. Leave it alone. Let the bad guy go.
They can't.
I know.
So the 43 version starred Claude Rains, also a very great horror actor of the day. They actually did have a makeup artist for that one.
Yes.
Because
I have not seen it. So how was the comparison of the makeup?
So
done?
It's different.
Well, here's the thing. So the history of this. So they tried to redo Phantom of the Opera in a talking version several times between that 43 version and that 25 version. I'm not forgetting the fact that they did do sound over the 25 version that disappeared, but they kept wanting to refilm it as a, full color, full sound, and it kept getting put off, and it would get pitched and there's something they wouldn't like about the pitch, and they would do this. So they finally pitched it as an Abbott and Costello movie.
Oh my word.
So like, the Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
Yeah.
So it was going to be one of those, which kind of makes sense because they've done all the other Universal Monster ones with it, right?
Dracula, Frankenstein. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I forgot exactly what happened, but it ended up not being an Abbott and Costello one, but you could definitely tell that was its original feel. Now, it's not fully campy like those. It's a little more elements of horror, but it's very light, very light.
In this one, Christine is the Phantom's daughter.
That's another funny thing. So the original script, yes, it was supposed to be that it was the Phantom was the estranged father of the ingenue opera singer, and that he had abandoned her and her mother to become a violinist in the opera, to follow his own music, his own passion, and to make up for that, he was when Christine appears at the Paris Opera House as a chorus, he starts taking all his salary to pay for her to have advanced music lessons and stuff like that. And but they took that out. So it, like still when I watched it before I read that, I had the feeling that he was supposed to be like her father and that the whole thing was paternal, but they took it out and left it vague because you were supposed to just not understand what his obsession with her was. But it still, to me, seems kind of clear because there was that whole lullaby tie-in.
There was a lullaby that she knew that he played, and she's like, but that's my lullaby. And you're like, yeah.
And they're from the same region. And the first encounter they show with him, it seems very paternal.
Yeah. Because he's like,
I mean, if you took it a little creepier angle, you can kind of look at it and go, okay, maybe I can see where it might be not paternal and just kind of stalkery, but well, there's also paternal stalkery, don't get me wrong.
I was going to say, it felt paternal because he wasn't like, what am I going to say? How do I want to put this in the, like, it didn't feel incel-y, like the other Phantom.
It felt more overbearing parent than it felt like.
Overbearing parent, yes. Like, I want what's best for you. I'm trying to do what's best for you. And like, they do tell you that he's been using all of his money to pay for her voice lessons and stuff. So she just knows she has a wealthy benefactor. She didn't know who it was. She's never known who it was.
Exactly.
Here's something, the differences between the two versions, how you said the 1943 one is a little lighter, a little more camp, and the 1925 version, pre-code Hollywood. I don't know when they started to have the movie code.
They still have to get it through censorship.
30s? Yeah. True.
In the 43s, and actually I read a little blurb where it actually didn't make it through I forgot what they call it, the office that reviewed it and decided whether or not you can put the film on screen. At first, like it got rejected, like they were not going to be allowed to distribute it.
The 25 or the 43?
The 43, because there were too many shots of what they thought was Christine's cleavage because she was wearing very low cut gowns.
Yes.
I mean, but you don't really, I mean, it's not like Elvira Booby going out. It's just like you know, you just see like, it would be like if you saw this.
It was.
I know you're all aroused now. You know what I mean?
Ooh, Jenny, show us.
Décolletage is what you would not use the word boobies. You would say her décolletage was
Yeah,
showing.
like there was, you didn't even see the little cleft really for the most part. It was just, but you know, it was 1943. So, and it's funny because it never says if they changed the shots or not. It just eventually got through. So I don't know if bribery ensued or what, but there's no clear story about how it finally got past the censor office and was okay with, you know, the chest skin of the woman.
Mm-hmm.
So
that anybody who has boobs, if they wear a shirt or a dress, has to deal with.
Right. I mean, like she wasn't very well now because, like I said, you really weren't seeing cleavage. You were just seeing the skin.
She was wearing like the 1900 style dresses, so she had on like a corset.
Yeah,
so it was pretty flat. I mean, it was like tops of boobs, if anything, at the back.
If anything, and I would say you really weren't even seeing that. It was mostly
there was a lot of ruffle.
Yeah.
Do you know what I think they did? I think they just added ruffle to all her dresses, and
that might have been it.
Probably.
I'm dead
Costume
serious.
department here. Add this.
I have been in productions where basically what they did was they were like, "You're showing too much boob," and just added a ruffle. So.
I believe it.
A lot of her dresses do have ruffles, so I think you might be absolutely correct. Mystery solved. Thanks, Betsy.
You're welcome. Yeah. I'm guessing that's exactly what it was because she did have a lot of ruffles at the décolletage. Like,
but the 43 version, this is one of the versions you actually get what happened to make the Phantom.
Yep.
So he was called Claudin instead of Eric.
Yeah.
And he was a violinist in the opera.
Henri
Claudin, yes. And the conductor hears something off in the violin section and he knows it's Claudin, and he, you know, turns out Claudin's got something degenerative going with his hands, so he can't really do the fingers like he should. So he gets fired. And like, as we noted, he has no savings because he's been dumping all his salary to get Christine extra singing lessons from a maestro. And but he has was it a concerto, Betsy?
Yeah, he has a concerto
that he had composed that is supposed to be amazing, that he had taken to get to a publicist basically to get it out there. And he goes in to get it or to find out if they've listened to it, reviewed it, and going to buy it. And the guy who owns the shop basically blows him off and says, just get it and take and go. And his wife / assistant goes to get it. They can't find it. And then he hears it being played. So he starts freaking out, thinking they're stealing it because he can't, you know, they flashed through the conversation of it being played in the room. And here they were trying, you know, they were listening to it and they were like, oh yeah, this guy's going to buy this one. We're going to insist he buys this from Claudin because it's amazing. But he can't, Claudin doesn't hear that. He just hears the concerto being played, jumps to the worst conclusion that they're stealing it from him, freaks out, starts strangling the shit out of the publicist. And the publicist's wife, they just explained that there was an acid bath there that they were going to use for something. I'm not entirely sure what. Something
probably photography.
To set something, yeah. And she takes it, just throws it at Claudin, and you know, melts half his face, but you can't see it. You know, he's just running the streets this way, jumps into the sewer. I'm pretty sure he should have just died because
with
it's an open wound into the Paris sewers. I mean,
let's talk bacteria, shall we?
That should have just all the skin should have been eaten off his face.
Like, well, he's dead, or he's going to be the Toxic Avenger because he can do that.
I mean, I remember every time I watch it, every time I think the same thing. I'm like, I think I'd have just let it burn and just died.
He's literally splashing it up on his face.
I'm like,
oh
no.
Really, really gross.
Warning. Don't be eating anything when you're watching that scene.
I mean, to be fair, you know, it's 1943, so they're not showing it looking like sewage, but you know it's supposed to be the Paris sewers. It's supposed to be the sewers. Like do that. And then proceeds to live a life under the opera house where he steals the master key and, you know.
And masks and thing and food. And then there's one guy who keeps telling you that it's the opera ghost, and how he does that is he goes, because
he says the Phantom of the Opera has a long nose and a long red beard, which ends up being a running gag because at one point he does that to one of the actors in Masks, and turns out it's somebody with a long nose and a red beard.
Well, it's almost like a throwback to the first film where they're I've seen him. He has a great big nose, and then another was, I've seen him. He has no nose.
Yep.
When that's the one where at one point you see the secret police Ledoux. He's investigating, and the ballerinas and one of the stagehands are all freaked out, seeing him walk through one of the low areas of the opera house, and they're all back like this, and you see Ledoux look at them like,
what's wrong with you?
like one of the most epic side eyes that I've ever seen on film, I have to say.
Yeah, it was lovely. He was like, people just walking here in the back, what's wrong? Yeah, so you also have a romantic rivalry in the 43 version. So you have Raoul, who is a police officer in the 43 version, and the baritone Anatoly,
yeah,
who is also taking Christine under his wing for obviously not just selfless reasons.
Both of these men have impressive mustaches.
Yes, 2 impressive mustaches. Which is kind of confusing because they look somewhat similar. So sometimes it was just like, wait, who? Okay, got it.
So the one that played the Raoul, so the inspector, straight up looked like the guy who plays Lassiter on Psych.
He did a little.
And so Seth was like, that guy would be played by Lassiter if it was me in the modern day. And I was like, shut up, you're right. And I hit him, and sorry. Straight up hit my husband. Because I was excited. He was right. But yeah, their rivalry is super fun and funny. That's where it gets into the Abbott and Costello.
Yeah, that's the element totally gives you the campiness of that.
Yeah, it's their rivalry because they bump into each other all the time, and they're like,
trying to get to the same door together.
No.
Yeah.
They both go to kiss her hand at the same time, so they're basically like kissing each other. It's very funny. Oh.
So funny. So the sculpture they show in that one scene when they're all together was actually sculpted by the actor who played the baritone.
Oh wow, that's fascinating.
That was his hobby. It's
neat.
Honestly, great.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Go look for the sculpture. It's great. Also, I wanted every single wig that she wore because I know they were all wigs, and I wanted every single one with these crazy curls. I'm like, yes, please. Thank you.
And it's worth pointing out that the Carlotta in this one was a badass. I mean, she was a bitch, but she was a badass. So she didn't have a mom looking after her. She didn't have a man looking after her. But when they were trying to take her shit away, she was like, I'm under contract. And if you're going to say that I'm supposed to forget that somebody poisoned my ass, then we're going to forget that Christine even fucking sang on the stage. Get her ass off there. She's back in the chorus. Bitch was looking out for number 1. She died. She got struck by the Phantom, but she was looking out for number 1. She won't play it. Even when the Phantom comes at her, she was like, you wait a minute. And then she got choked to death. But I give her props. She did not crawl back in horror at all. She was like, Well, she's like, for minutes, flinches, and she's like, no, I'm standing my ground. I'm not letting this man intimidate me any more than I am any others.
No. This is mine.
So, which is funny because when I first watched this when I was young, I didn't like Carlotta, of course, but because she was mean to Christine, and Christine was the heroine. But I have great amounts of admiration for her now.
It's funny how time changes the perception, of the media that you're watching.
It's true.
A time and experience.
Well, I mean, like we spend so much of our time cowering, growing up, be worried about this. Don't rock the boat, just smile back at them. Don't egg them on, don't.
Be pretty and shut up.
Don't walk alone. Don't do this. Don't do that. So when you see, when you're older and you have been tired of that shit, none of it saves you anyway. You realize the only thing that saves you is standing up and kicking somebody in the dick. You admire a woman that will stand up and kick somebody in the dick. Like, I should have watched more of you. So.
And what was it that Helen Mirren has said that in years past she should have used fuck you
off,
fuck off much more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Be nice to men. Fuck them.
No.
And I will say that what I liked in this movie is that they did turn a trope here, because at the end, like, of course it ends like you think it's going to, where like they end up in the catacombs, he's taken her away, although it's way more weird and you don't understand why he's doing it in this one. Like, no, we can never go back. And she's like, but why? Like, why are you doing this? Like, if he's not interested in her emotionally, why is he still? It doesn't make as much sense.
Yeah.
But he ends up dead, of course.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of clear. Well, not kind of clear, but I think the implication is supposed to be he just fucking lost his mind after he committed that murder. But it really, yeah, it's not as, you know, as a father, why would he want to hide her under the opera house? Doesn't make a lot of sense. Right. Unless he is. And I think that maybe is why they took that out of there. So you weren't supposed to be sure if he was sexually attracted to her or paternally.
Right.
Just, yeah, gone.
What the
no
thought
sense.
Because, but in the end, she ends up in her dressing room because she's just had a command performance. And you see her walk in, and then the two men walk in, like come swanning in, you know, bumping into each other the whole way. And she's like, they're like, we have dinner reservations. And she's like, no. And then she hears the audience like out in the hallway waiting for her because she's now the diva. And she literally walks out and goes to the audience, and the two men leave together to have dinner.
It's hilarious.
It was
very Abbott and Costello-y. It's very cute.
It is.
But that's where I was like, in my head canon, those two decided just to date because it was way easier than dating.
They would make a very lovely couple too, because they were both really, you know, nice.
They were good-looking dudes.
Fantastic mustaches.
Yes, I mean,
two fantastic mustaches. They were both like daring brunette men.
Yeah. Though one of them was actually a blonde, and they invented a one day rinse out tint to give him dark hair because he refused to have it dyed permanently.
Which one?
I can't remember now.
Well, now I'm curious because I'm like,
I think if you just go on to IMDb and look up trivia, you'll find it.
It was a blonde because I'm like, hey, dude, because they both look really good as brunettes.
They do. Let me see, Phantom trivia. Sorry, I'll try to find it, but and let you know, Betsy. And if you guys are curious, I'll post it. Which one was the actual blonde? I'm
just curious because
how do you?
But I thought it was interesting because they invented the the 24-hour tint just for him. So we have him to thank for that.
He is.
Yeah. How do you? Since I didn't have the chance to watch the 43 version, how do you two feel between Mary Philbin and the actress in the 43 version, the portrayals of Christine Day?
Different. It's not even comparable.
No,
honestly. I mean, she's a fine actress, and she was a soprano. She was actually a singer. The 1943 one.
Yeah, it's interesting to note in the 25 version that Mary Philbin, she was not that great of a singer. So here she is playing a singer, was she herself?
But she never would have to sing, though.
Yeah, exactly. That's the joy of a
never have been asked
of a silent film. Yeah.
I mean,
okay, Nelson Eddy, who played Anatoly, was the one who had his.
That's the one I figured it was, but all right.
Yeah, and Susannah Foster is the name of the woman in the 1943 version who played Christine Day, and she's a gorgeous girl. I mean, they're beautiful, but like a completely different look, a completely different thing that they're going for there, and I'm sure she was cast a lot because of her singing ability, and
she had a beautiful voice. I mean, just beautiful.
And Nelson Eddy was a very famous baritone, so he sang on stage,
nice.
Behind the camera.
Now that you said that name, I totally recognized the name. So I'm like, all right.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think what else was funny about that movie that was interesting. Oh, Claude Rains actually had it agreed that they wouldn't be doing too much disfiguring makeup, which is why I think they confined it just to half his face instead of the full 1925 Lon Chaney.
How funny.
Which I think then eventually led to the way that they did it for like the stage show where they do like the partial mask so that most of his face is open.
Yeah. What else was I forgot the name of the makeup artist. It was Jack something on the 1943 one, but
Pierce,
Susannah Foster,
maybe?
Like Kristen Day. Sorry?
Pierce, maybe? Jack Pierce? There was, I
don't remember.
Thought a makeup artist by that name.
It might have been. In the 40s.
Same one who did.
It probably is.
Like
I just don't remember. The first name was Jack. It might have been Pierce, but so he did obviously Claude Rains makeup and then the bigger stars makeup, but Susannah Foster was new and not very famous. This might have been her first film, as far as I know. I didn't really look it up. She was not a highly rated actress at the time, so she did not have her own makeup artist. She was doing her own makeup. but Jack would give her tips. And like, so he would tell her, hey, this, do this for this. And she looked amazing. She was stunning. I mean, she's very beautiful. And, but it was funny because the makeup artist was supposed to be known to be like he had a reputation for being mean. And I guess it was a reputation he wanted to keep. So like when he would see her, when she'd come out, he would fake yell at her. Like, like she knew it wasn't real. And he would be like, that's not what I told you to do with your makeup. And she'd be like, hey, I'm sorry. So I thought that was kind of cute.
I like it.
But yeah, they did like a radio tour or a radio show version of it, which the original actors did the singing again. And they were going to go on a tour. Nelson Eddy and Susannah Foster and some of the other cast to do like a singing little tour for Phantom of the Opera. But Susannah Foster didn't think her voice was really up to it. She didn't think she was a good enough singer for that. So she didn't go along. So, I mean, it's just a lot of interesting things. But the funniest part to me is anything filmed in the catacomb where you see Susannah Foster or Christine Day and Raoul and Anatoly. Raoul and Anatoly are not the actors. It's stuntmen. But it is Susannah Foster who is in the catacombs. Though,
I read that. They thought it was too dangerous for the actors, but they let her do all of this stuff.
But they let her do stuff? Okay.
Well, because again, not as highly rated as an actor as those two. So they're like, if somebody's going to get hurt, sorry, girl.
Rude.
When it
is what it is.
When it makes me think of, I heard this story about on set of The Gladiator, that you know how there's that scene where Russell Crowe is his character is in the arena with the tigers. Well, one of the writers on his contract, like on filming, on set, what have you, downtimes and whatnot, he was not allowed to play soccer. They didn't want him to hurt himself. He's like, they let me film with tigers, but I'm not allowed to play soccer.
Fine, I guess.
That. Yeah.
Doesn't have to make sense.
Oh, and also, in 1943, this is the other funny thing I thought was funny. The operas that are sung or shown in the movie are either public domain at the time or they made them up. Like they just took little pieces of song or concertos and made them into operas because they had a hard time tracking down the rights and didn't want to pay royalties. So, we're just gonna, so this is why we're like in the book and in the 1925, they reference Faust all the time. Yeah. In the 43, the only reference to Faust you see is like the very end scene. They have the Marguerite wig, it was born, but they don't do Faust because they would have to pay.
Yeah.
Funny. And they didn't want to do that. It was Jack Pierce. Is that what you said?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. I had been watching previously some behind the scenes commentary on some of the other Universal Monster movies. So
that makes sense.
That's how I managed to remember, because usually the names just out of my head. I am not one of these fans who remembers, well, this actor on that cast with this version. And no, I'll know some of it, but I'm not like the detailed fanatic.
No.
I'm just, my brain doesn't work anymore. So if I don't have it written down, and sometimes when I write it down, I can't read it anyway. So I have to look it back up. But I guess we should probably wrap it up. The Great Gabbo, don't watch if you're looking for a horror film. But if you're looking to be vaguely entertained and confused as hell and just want to see like a piece of cinematic history, watch it.
If you enjoy cinematic history, it's a good one to go for.
And there's some really solid musical numbers. So if you're into musicals, very nice 1920s costuming and musical numbers.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, awesome movie based on that, just not a horror movie. If you want horror, 1925 Phantom of the Opera for sure. Even without sound, holds up. You definitely get the feel, the menace, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, and you can feel the threat. I mean, it feels threatening. Like
they do a wonderful job of like amping up the creepiness and threat level. Yeah. And
just to experience Lon Chaney's makeup and the fact that he did all that himself with wires and it just totally
wires and fake rotted teeth and
fish pieces. He used fish scales.
Just incredible. truly incredible, kind of gross, but very incredible.
Definitely.
Brilliant.
Yeah, watch it. It's free on several different streaming mediums, or buy it for like $10 and stream it forever.
Yeah.
The 1943 one, I think it's worth watching just because it's like the height of MGM's, or I'm sorry, Universal's very much big productions. I mean, it's a huge musical. It's probably one of the few musical horrors that existed at the time,
Yeah.
even though it was a very low key
True.
horror, more of a
It's
Abbott and Costello horror, but
horror-ish.
horror-like. I mean, there's some
Yeah.
things that are horrifying. I mean, you have Claude Rains running around strangling the shit out of people with an acid burn
Right,
face.
murder a couple times. So
So yeah, definitely. I think they are worth a watch. It is also right now the 1943 version is streaming for free on Roku. So, oh no, I'm sorry, it's on Vudu. My bad. It's streaming for free on Vudu. I know for sure. There's probably some other things that's streaming for free on as well. So, get your free in, enjoy it.
Definitely.
It's always fun to compare and contrast anyway. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, honestly, probably after this, I'm gonna go sit down and watch the 43 version.
It's worth it. It's worth it. It's entertaining.
Oh, I'm sure. I can't remember if I have it in the set that I do, because I have a set of Universal monster movie on Blu-ray,
cool.
and I'm not sure if it has the 43 or the 25 version.
It might have both. Who knows?
It probably does, because it basically it'll have like the parent movie, like Dracula, and Daughter of Dracula, Son of Dracula, House of Dracula, Abbott and Costello meet Dracula, and it goes through the list like that. And
then it probably does have both, because like I said, this was supposed to
Yeah.
be the Abbott and Costello meet the Phantom, and
Yeah.
I said I don't
I've-
remember all the details as to why it didn't go through. It had something to do with the actors weren't available. They didn't think it would play
probably.
as well, and it just ended up.
Yeah.
Just one last thought, because I just happened to think of it.
Oh, please.
How terrifying was Lon Chaney's mask
Oh yeah,
when he was wearing the weird like people mask?
it was very.
Oh
creepy.
yeah, that was.
It was
equally
probably creepier than his face in some ways, because it was just this like cartoonish, even kind of
Yeah.
like.
Well, there was the little bit of the uncanny valley aspect
Yes.
at times, like that it was supposed to be real, but it was
Yeah, it
in
was
some
like-
ways close, but in some ways not. It was awful.
It looked like he was wearing a baby face over his face. I did not
Yes.
very much, but that is also terrifying. So when you see him the first time and he's wearing his mask, it's bad. It's bad. And then it has like a weird flap thing, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's-
That little piece that kind of goes over the head too, that looks like a little bit of a black hat or something. It's just, yeah, it's a good thought. It's
that was more terrifying, I think, than his makeup.
poor Eric looked more, yeah, in a lot of ways it was, because you were like, it was meant to look harmless, but it's almost like a doll face that somebody took, and
Which
maybe
makes
that's
it
where
worse.
they got the idea for Texas Chainsaw.
Oh God. Yeah.
Well, and Ed Gaines, but that's just different. But anyway,
Right. It's different.
so well, final thoughts. Definitely watch the Phantom of the Opera movies, and probably watch The Great Gabbo too, because I think you'll get a kick out of it. It's something else.
It was entertaining.
I mean, like, it might be the first incel ever shot on film.
I mean, yeah. I mean, he's even living in a basement. Come on. No, it's not his mother's basement, but it is a basement.
So yeah, but yeah, enjoy. And as always, I'm Jenny,
I'm Rebecca.
Betsy.
and this is Girls Ghost Ghouls.